this man, we know that Zelensky has a little power because he's Ukrainian and he's in Ukraine and he's in the office of the presidency. But does he have so much power as to ignore and then disregard the will of NATO, especially the United States and the UK? Man, stop this. Stop this. Michael is in the building. Michael Lynn is in the building. So what I'm telling you is to think through the fog. Think through all of this haze and all of this confusion. Use common sense and go with your gut. Don't let anybody that you like, including me, deceive you or mislead you. Your life is at stake because we're watching an entire world, a global system, dying. It is being killed right now by the policies of the Western world. They, with every move that they make, thinking that they're making it better, they're only exacerbating the problems, right? Let's go a little further. So this is what Kiji Noy had to say about America as she collapses. And this is what I'm telling you. When you look at what they're saying about Zelensky, Zelensky, he's irrational. But is it so much of him, or is it too much of him to ask the U.S. and the U.K. to give him what they promised after sacrificing 1 million people and a third of his territory? Is it too much to ask him? And I'm not advocating war. I think Russia is in the right in what they're doing. So I'm going to be honest about this. I think that fighting against the Western world's policies of total hegemonic domination is the right thing to do. But is Zelensky so wrong for asking the United States, well, everything we've given him is disappeared? But that's your fault too. Why? In other war zones, you have accounting so that you can understand and know where this is going and how this is being spent. Why didn't you have it here? It's because it's a big money laundering scheme. And so when it all hits the fan, you can blame the puppet. As Shelley said, what did she say? An exploitable patsy. So the exploitable patsy gets the major blame, but Trump and the West now are suing for peace. The very people who put us on the path for thermonuclear war are suing for peace. Well, Trump is trying to get peace with Russia. Is he really? That is not what he's after. He's after a cessation of violence for a while so that he can then double down and then pivot to Asia to prevent China's breakout capacity. And then if he can defeat China, and that's a very big deal because it's not happening, he wants to double back and then take care of Russia. So is that really suing for peace? What that is prioritizing imperial goals. Call it for what it is. I'm tired of everybody trying to put lipstick on a pig and trying to tell me that that's Halle Berry. That's not how things go. So listen what Kiji Noy says about the imperial fall of America and what to look out for. Yeah, I got a lot of interviews with a lot of big names. As a matter of fact, I want to say this to you all. A lot of people who are now popular and making the rounds on the bigger channels, they were here before they were on the bigger channels like Alex Craner and a lot of the rest of them. Okay. YouTube, they suppress my numbers. They've taken hundreds of subscribers from me, and they do it in small doses. Whenever it goes up, it goes back down. Whenever it goes up, it goes back down. And then on my phone, I took pictures. I was trying to find the Red Pill Diaries. And every time I tried to find the Red Pill Diaries, it said no videos. So I couldn't find my own channel. I had to sign in as, the Red Pill Diaries to find my own channel. So I know I've been blocked and banned. So I already understand that, okay? So, but as long as I got your attention, I'm going to tell it to you so that you can go tell it to other people and maybe you can make it a difference, okay? But listen to what Kiji Noy has to say. Do you see America losing her footing, her grip on the Middle East because of this hypocrisy, this blatant hypocrisy and imperial hubris that is being shown to the Muslim world, to the Middle Eastern and North African region over this Palestinian conflict?
I think it is. I think it is losing its footing. I mean, you already see that in that it is starting to lose Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was the United States, one of the United States' most important proxies, along with Israel. It was what the United States used to prevent national liberation movements in the Middle East, Baathism and other national social movements. This was the kind of bulwark against that. And it was also the basis of the US petrodollar, which allows the United States to have this unlimited credit card that it spends because the US dollar is based on it being the reserve currency, which is tied to its being the peg for the petrodollar. And the fact that Saudi Arabia is slipping out of its orbit, and where Saudi Arabia goes, the other Gulf states go. And you see the Gulf states are building relations with China and the Belt and Road and the BRICS. Then you see that there is a kind of foundational centrifugal force that's happening. And the US is no longer able to exert its will in this arbitrary and unitary way uh, uh, as it was able to. But the problem with this is that this is a very, very dangerous moment because as the empire weakens, as it senses its power waning and slipping away from its grasp, it becomes more dangerous. To give you an analogy, it's like the drunk at the bar, and the bar is closing. The final call has been given, the bar is closing, and the drunk is drunk with power. It's drunk with power, but it has maxed out its credit cards, okay? And it struck out with everybody. And it's time to go home. It's time for the empire to go home. But doesn't want to go home. The drunk doesn't want to go home. And what it wants is it wants a fight. It wants to have a fight. It would, it's going to have a fight. It's not going to go home. It just wants to pick a fight. And if it has to take on the entire bar, it will. And that's kind of the mindset of the neocon dead enders who believed that it was their mandate starting the 90s to rule the planet. They refer to it as unipolar global hegemony. That's just a fancy word for boss of the world. They believed that they were the boss of the world. And they believed that they should and could do anything in order to do that. And nobody could have a say. In fact, one of the neocons said, it's our job to pick up a small country and throw it against the wall every few years just to show who's boss. This is what they said. They said, we create our own reality. The rest of you can study it. We make our own reality. That was the kind of hubris and arrogance that fueled this imperial project, this neocon imperial project. And now this power is waning and they're becoming frantic. And so they want to take on the world. One war in the Ukraine is not enough. A second war, a genocide in the Middle East is not enough. They want a third war, right? Two wars and a genocide are not enough. Now they want to also go to war with China. And I assure you, there is no way that that can have any chance of being successful. But this is their hubris. This is how they think. And they would rather see the end of the planet than the end of their power, because the end of their power is the end of the world for them. They'd rather see the end of the world than the end of their imperial privilege and power. And that's why this moment is so dangerous.
All right, now check it. While that was playing, just a few seconds ago, I just put in Zbigniew Brzezinski, Russia, Ukraine. And this is a quote from Zbigniew Brzezinski, okay? It cannot be stressed enough that without Ukraine, Russia ceases to be an empire. But with Ukraine suborned and then subordinated, Russia automatically becomes an empire. So his main goal, he was stressing this up till the day that he died, that we've got to separate Ukraine from Russia in order to beat Russia, subjugate Russia, and then expand the tentacles of empire. Now we hear Trump in the foreign policy team, and we hear the alternative media talking about Trump intends to get back all the money that they spent on Ukraine. Then they ridiculed Zelensky for saying that, hey, those were investments. We shouldn't have to pay back any debt. Okay, well, we have it where the successive U.S. administrations push into play a scheme to undermine the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine to make a weak government that is subjugated to the West, and they invested money in it so that they could use Ukraine as a battering ram to keep Russia focused on its near abroad, so it can eventually weaken Russia, bankrupt Russia, and then they can then do the rest by going in and neutering Russia's nuclear potential. And now they're screaming about the money that they've invested after having 1 million people killed in Ukraine and a couple 100,000 killed of Russian soldiers, or 100,000 killed of Russian soldiers. Screaming about the money that they put in there. See, nobody analyzes this way. Listen, as a matter of fact, here's an article right here. U.S. to get back money spent on aid to Ukraine, to Kyiv, Trump. Now, here's something else that nobody says. Most of the aid that was designated for Ukraine was not given to Ukraine. It was designated to Ukraine, then it was taken from the budget and then handed over to weapons manufacturers of the U.S. That's what happened. So even if you say the Ukraine owed $500 billion, does it really? Because the money was never really transferred over. It was taken. This is what the IMF does. This is what the World Bank does. They agree to a loan. They take the loan. Say, for instance, let's just give an example. Say, for instance, what is it? Niger. Niger qualifies for a $5 billion loan. Say, for instance, at the time, Niger has a corrupt government or a government that is weak. The United States or the World Bank would then, or the IMF would then allocate money for Western corporations to come in and do what they're doing. This would be put on the books as a debt to Niger, and only 500 million would go to Niger, because they know that the government would then only put about 50 million or 100 million into the people, and then they would put money in their own pockets and put them in Western banks. So Niger would be on the hook for $5 billion, even though Niger really only saw 50 million of it or 100 million of it. This is what he's screaming about. Why isn't anybody talking about that? And if you instigated the war, and the war didn't turn out in your terms, doesn't the victim get to cry about reparations and not the aggressor? But in bizarro world, because that's Donald Trump talking, everybody they're mesmerized. If this was Joe Biden talking, they'd be ridiculing him like I did.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in